proof. And so what I want to talk with you about today is the scientific findings of the entire scientific community. Sometimes we talk about it as consensus, but it's not that the science is a consensus, it's a consensus that this is what we understand and this is what we don't understand. So that's the starting point for the material I want to present. And the starting point is really quite profound. There's essentially no doubt that the climate has changed dramatically in the last 100 years or so. We've seen a warming that worldwide has been about 1.5 Fahrenheit degrees. Essentially no question that humans have caused the majority of the changes we've seen over the last 50 years or so. Climate change is not some hypothetical possibility for the future. It's something that's real, it's happening now, and it's also impacting physical systems, biological systems, and people around the world. That's a second major conclusion that I want to talk about, which is that when we talk about impacts, it's not hypothetical impacts about faraway places and unknown species. We've really seen impacts of climate changes that have already occurred. They've been widespread, consequential. We've seen impacts on every continent. We've seen impacts from the equator to the poles and from the mountains to the coasts. We've seen impacts on physical systems, the length of glaciers, the timing of rivers. We've seen impacts on biological systems, the ranges of species, the timing of biological events, the extent of forest fires. And we've seen impacts on human systems, the amounts of agricultural productivity. We've seen impacts on livelihoods, things like commercial activities with fishing, even transportation. There's essentially no question that the climate changes that have already occurred have had major, substantial impacts. There's also no question that vulnerability to climate change is widespread. You know, we tend to think about vulnerability as most concentrated among the world's poor. People who have limited access to control over their own lives, where inequality creates challenges, where lack of resources means there's a lack of options for dealing with climate. But when you really look about it, what we see is that some of the most difficult challenges are for those people, but some of the least preparation we see in the world's rich societies. And that was really brought home in a really crystallizing way with Hurricane Sandy in New York in late 2011. And there we had over $60 billion of damages from a serious but not unheard of level of storm, and it showed a striking level of lack of preparation. Essentially, we're all sitting ducks, and there's no place in the world that's really prepared to deal with the impacts of the climate variations that we're already seeing, independent of whether those are associated with climate change.